Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Johnson, and with me is Evelyn Model. We are your co-hosts for the Interplay podcast, a place where we ask and answer questions about everything non-speaking. If you're an individual who is non-speaking or unreliably speaking, or know someone who is, this podcast is for you. Come join us as we chat about the things that we have learned from the true experts, the autistics themselves, and listen in when we interview parents, researchers, and more.
All right, we want to welcome everybody to our next podcast, and we have some special guests today, Catherine and Aaron McAllister, and I want to introduce them to us. Catherine is a senior at the Connection School of Atlanta, where she excels in all subjects. She has lots of speech, but uses a letterboard to spell her deeper thoughts out and express herself authentically. A self-described self-advocate, she also loves to sing, act, and perform. And then Erin, her mom, served as a classroom teacher and communication specialist at the Hirsch Academy in Decatur for over 5 years. She is also a founding board member of Connection School of Atlanta, a competence-presuming high school for neurodiverse students ages 14 to 22. Currently, she conducts unique individual and group student sessions that focus on building augmentative and alternative communication, or AAC, skills. She also works with parents and families so that they may better support the communication needs of our neurodiverse children at home. So we're very excited to have you both here with us. And we wanted to have you both on because Evelyn and I were talking recently, we talk a lot about this, but we have a number of clients who are what we call unreliable speakers. So they have speech, but they use a letterboard to communicate. So why don't we start off with giving a definition of an unreliable speaker? And I will turn it over to you, Aaron and Catherine.
Okay, thanks. Well, I wrote down, I think, a little bit about what it means to me, and then I'll share with you what Catherine spelled. Basically for me, an unreliable speaker, it's when speech is 100% functional, in that mechanically the act of mouth speech is taking place, but the quality of the communication is comparatively low. And to piggyback on that, Catherine had spelled, I'm just reading her notes here.
Hi, Shelley Carnes and the Murders.
We are all the most misunderstood of all autistics. We may as well be non-speaking because I can barely speak what I really want to.
Welcome to Shelley and the Murders.
And she went on to say, to spell, you cannot certainly understand what it's like to stay calm when your body does not read your mind.
Welcome to Shelley Carnes and the Murders by Shelley Carnes.
Unlikely foes are he and I, unreliable body and reliable brain. Too many doubt whether I am smart, but I tell you, I reliably am.
Shelley Carnes and a wonderful murder.
And Aaron, just a quick question, just more for clarification, because you were talking about quality of speech, right? And I was thinking, some may think that that's quality as an articulation. Like Catherine, you have very articulated speech. You speak clearly. We have others who a quality of speech isn't the articulation, it's difficult to understand. But in this case, when you're saying quality, you can absolutely, Catherine, we're hearing your speech happen. And so it is very clear, very concise. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's really the difference here is that, the articulation, there's not really, some unreliable speakers may have
Hi, this is Shelley
some
Carnes
challenges
and the
with
Murders
articulation.
by Shelley Carnes.
With Catherine specifically, she doesn't. It's easy to understand the words to make out the words that she speaks. But it's the disconnect comes
Hi, Shelley Carnes and the
between
Murders.
what she intends to speak and what actually comes out of her mouth. That's the difference.
Yeah, which, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I totally hear what you guys are saying, Aaron and Kat, and I see, and I agree. There's so many of you guys that are in this, fall under the same category, which is so tricky to understand, right? And so my next question really falls into a very unique and I guess individual category, because based on what I hear you say, you're saying that, you know, words come out of your mouth and they're not what you intend, and people misinterpret your intellect, they misinterpret what you intend to happen, want to happen. But as a neurotypical, you know, coming in from the outside looking in, and maybe somebody that's not even familiar with autistics even in general, they might be listening to you and they might think you want to engage in that conversation, and it might be a loop, or it might be, you know, anything. How do you prefer that people respond to you when they might think like, I'm not sure if she is meaning to say this, or she doesn't mean to say this, or maybe even sometimes if you are scripting from a movie, or maybe repeating something over and over, how do you, Kat, want people to respond? And again, I want to say that I know not everybody's the same, but you know, I just like to hear what your preference is.
Hi, Shelley's and the murders.
Well, I posed this question to Catherine earlier today.
I'm in Shelley's and the murders.
And she spelled, I want to be heard.
Shelley's and the murders by Shelley
Stop
Carnes.
feeding my loops. You can acknowledge me. Then lip service only needs some encouragement, and then I can really shine.
Hi, Shelley Carnes and the murders by Shelley Carnes.
And then
Go ahead.
In another talk that we gave, she said, and this I wanted to bring this back in because I thought this was really helpful for me. She said, I would like people to realize that I may be searching for a commonality between us.
Welcome to Shelley Carnes. She's going to a murders by
Don't
Shelley
fall
Carnes.
for my scripts.
By Shelley Carnes.
Talk to me about meaningful things. My script may not stand a chance if you give me something more compelling to consider.
That's really great.
So bring the conversation to something more interesting, more relatable, something completely different. And
more age appropriate,
murders
what's happening in the room, if it's a party or what have you. It's not Shelley Carnes and murders. It's
Welcome to Shelley and the freaking murders by Shelley Carnes.
So yeah.
And I think that's helpful too, especially and Aaron, you may want to chime in as far as your practitioner experience. Is that what if we don't know, right? Like Catherine, you're able to ask, or we're able to ask you, and you can give us your specific feedback, and then we have clients where we can say, what do you want to, how do you want us to respond or not respond? But then with what you just said, I think that's really helpful for us. But yes, and Erin, you're welcome to chime in as far as that practitioner educator experience too.
Well, I think the first thing she said spelled earlier today when she said, I want to be heard, but stop feeding my loops. So
welcome to Shelley and the murders by Shelley.
Not only with Catherine, but with the other kids that I work with. If they say something, I'll say, I got that. I'm going to write that down.
Hi, Shelley and the murders.
We're going to write down Shelley and the murders. And now I want you to tell me more on the boards. Because a lot of kids will become quite dysregulated if you don't acknowledge that script. So, you don't want to enable, but at the same time, we'll acknowledge, and now we're going to move on. And
Shelley and the murders,
for the kids that I worked with over the years, who then later have been able to articulate
scratch more up here
how that felt, I think that they were by far very appreciative that I did not continue to feed that loop. as I think as a parent, I think it's harder to not, because you just want your kid to be okay, and my kid's escalating, and you want okay, so you want Thomas the Train, or you want whatever, and you just want to make it okay because you want your child to have a nice, relaxing evening without a meltdown. I think it's really kind of the opposite. Let's acknowledge it and move through it, because in the long run, that's what's going to give that sense of peace.
Yeah, I wonder, so, and I'm just curious, Kat, if this is helpful for you, because, I like, Erin, the fact that you acknowledge, you write it down, and then you're able to then spell, and let's talk. Tell me what you really have on your mind, kind of go from there. If a parent doesn't have that capacity yet, let's say they're not at fully open, they're just maybe in the midst of practice, or maybe they haven't even gotten to the letter boards yet. And maybe Kat, maybe I'll pose this question to you. What do you think? Do you have a suggestion for what a parent might do to help their kid if they're not yet open on the boards? What could a parent do to help them kind of break that loop or the scripting?
Just sit by them. Just sit by them.
Just sit by them?
Yes, that's what I said.
So I'll definitely write that down. Just sit by them.
And just be chill.
And just be chill. Now I'll tell you, for the people listening, Catherine and I have been working on the letter boards for many, many years. And one of the magical things that happens from working with AAC and myelinating, doing that whole brain body disconnect, is that her reliable speech is 4,000% what it was 8 years ago. So that very well may be some really nice, reliable advice for parents.
Yes, it is.
Just sit by them and just be chill.
Yes,
Chill's very important.
That was reliable, right?
What I like to do with the letter boards too is to acknowledge that.
That was reliable, okay, Erin?
But that I want more. Tell me more. Whether it's, more about what you just said, or something, a little bit different. So, that's how we use. And
scratch her back too.
And
scratch her back.
And you want me to write that down?
Yes.
Too? And scratch their back. And scratch their back.
And read to them.
Yeah.
And read to them. Also known as feed the brain. And read to them. Okay. I love all those ideas. It's great advice. But I want
to just chill.
I want you to tell me a little bit more. So I'm going to scoot you back just a little bit so you have room.
Welcome to Shelley and the Murders.
And scoot your bottom back here so I have room for the board. So you said, just sit by them and just be chill and scratch their backs. Read to them.
I don't have anything else.
Ready?
I don't have anything else to add, okay?
So let's put that on pause. I'm just going to push it just a little bit this way. All right. She said, Erin is right. Keep it going. Tell me more. Yes.
Done.
Teeth in.
Done.
Nice and strong. Teeth.
Done.
She said, so much more there if you take the time.
When can I be done?
Go.
Aaron, when can I
Finish
be
it up.
done?
You got it. All the way. You got it. And if you take the time to listen.
That's awesome, Kat. Thank you for sharing that. It's so important that we all hear what you just had to say as parents, as educators, as practitioners, as siblings. I love that you started your answer with your speech, and really, it's like you were saying, Erin, after so much practice, this form of communication is really enhancing her speech and making it more reliable. But she was able to really, Kat, you were really able to give us so much more of that, like quality is kind of what you were talking about, answer. And you gave us a great start and then a beautiful way of explaining to parents that there is so much more that you have to say. And we just need to provide the opportunity and the experience for you to do it.
I think too that what I was observing with you guys spelling is something that I see often with my families, newer families, or those that are, may have more experience, but more so the newer families, is what was coming out of your mouth, Kat, was I'm all done. I don't have anything else. Done. Can I be done? And, some parents will respond to it. And just like we were just talking about, then you join the loop. And then, or others may be like, oh, you're done? Okay, well, he doesn't really want to spell, or she doesn't really, like, she's done. She really did not have anything else to add. And that's where it gets really tricky. So it was great to see you guys and how you work through that by just keep that momentum going, keep that rhythm going, keep the encouragement and getting to everything that you wanted to say, Kat, just like you said. I mean, take the time to listen. And so that was really great. I was just thinking that was what was going through my head when I was watching you guys go.
And, I'm going to chime in and just say, yes, I totally 100% agree. I thought it was brilliant. It was a great example of, because that in itself, it doesn't sound scripty, right? Because some of the things, Kat, you've been saying since we started sounded sort of scripty because it wasn't really fitting the scenario. But in that sense, here you are spelling, and then you're saying done, when can I be done? And it kind of fits. And so that's where the trickiness happens. And the parents, oftentimes, they're really the ones that are learning and don't have this aren't as skilled as their child is. So then, they immediately kind of back off and, oh, okay, they're done. Oh, they're done. Yeah. And when in reality, you just sat there, Erin, and you were like, oh, keep going. Very calm, just like what Kat was saying, sit next to me, stay calm. And then you just were very encouraging. And I think that is, I hope our viewers really take a look at that and provide those opportunities for their spellers.
Right. Yeah. I think that's when I work with families, I hear it so many times. They say, but she doesn't want to spell with me.
Mm-hmm.
She'll spell with you, but she doesn't want to spell with me. Mm-hmm. Yes, she does. Mm-hmm. To believe that.
Hi, Juliana Murders.
Right, and it's you're not giving up, right? So you just keep going. When they say that to me, I said, well, I'm not listening to what they're saying. I'm telling, keep going, keep going,
And a
keep
wonderful
going. And then,
murders.
and that's why I do get more, because I'm not listening to what's coming out. I'm just keep going, because they hit, I was guilty of it too in the beginning. I'm not, in the beginning when I'm learning, I remember thinking, oh, okay, they're done, and I'd be done. And then I started realizing, well, and the more I started looking at their bodies and understanding and getting to know them more, I realized, like, okay, well, maybe, I don't know, like, who. In fact, I remember the exact moment that light bulb went off, and I was watching Dana with a speller who I was spelling with, and we were doing a lesson. She was spelling with him, and he gave an answer about, it was like a job he wanted to do or something like that. And he finished the sentence, a complete thought. And then we stopped and we were like, oh, how cool. And we were talking about what he said. And then there were some cues. I don't remember what it was, but I think he might have grabbed the board or something. And then I remember Dana saying, oh, okay, I think you might have more to say. And that for me was such a light bulb moment. And now I realize, like, maybe they will grab the board, maybe they won't. Maybe they'll even be telling me stop when I'm done and I want to leave, and car and all these things. But now I know, but that was the light bulb moment for me. Like, who am I to say just because he finished a sentence that he's done?
Tell me more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me more. And if truly they're done, and if truly your kid or your student is done, they'll let you know. But
Yeah.
always have to ask, tell me more.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So Erin, maybe you could talk a little bit more about your experience as a parent going through this. Like, and when I say going through this, that's not the right term. I guess your journey is what I'm thinking about. And maybe giving some insight into that, but then also, what is it that we can support our parents with who are listening to us? And then we'll shift to practitioners. But I think this is really important to talk about, especially coming from you and Kat, and we have this opportunity.
Well, I think
Shelley Carnes and the murders.
I could get on the soapbox here, but I think that what's the most important thing to tell parents is that you have got to ditch your preconceptions who might want or need AAC. You have to.
This is Shelley and the Wonderful Murders.
Just because your kid is communicating using some type of verbal speech, it doesn't mean they're communicating to the best of their ability. It's interesting, at the Connection School where Catherine goes to school, and I'm one of the founders of the school.
Hi, this is Shelley and the Murders.
This year, American Sign Language. And I really have to pull, and I support Catherine's communication in this class. And they've been talking about the deaf and hard of hearing community, and about this whole what they call oralism.
Hi, welcome to Shelley and the Murders by Shelley Carnes.
Oralism meaning having to,
welcome to Shelley
the
Carnes
push
and the
to
Murders
actually
by Shelley Carnes.
read lips and or actually learn to speak versus truly communicating through sign language. And I feel that particularly with the unreliable speaking community, there's a lot of, it makes a lot of sense when you think about the hard of hearing community. They're not really deaf. Sometimes people will say to me at school, or if I'm working with them, oh, okay, I get it. If he doesn't speak, I know he needs a letterboard, but he can speak. So shouldn't we encourage this? It's kind of the same thing, with that deaf versus hard of hearing. If a child or an individual is really hard of hearing, yeah, they could learn to read lips. Yeah, they could learn to speak, but
hi, Shelley and the Murders.
They're probably missing about 3/4 of what the person is trying to convey through lip reading. And, you know, do you really want that individual to be able to
Hey,
understand
welcome to Shelly
and
and
to
the
be
Murders.
a full partner in the communicative process? Or do you want them to just kind of like pass and look normal? You know, so I think that's the
Welcome
real
to
struggle
Shelly
with a
and the
lot of
Murders
parents, what they
by
have
Shelley
with
Carnes.
these kids who can speak. It's like, but she can speak. And if
Welcome
we
to
could just
Shelly
teach her
and
to
the
speak
Murders by
more,
Shelley Carnes.
then that would be so much better. And I think it's really important for, you know, parents to understand that speech should not be the end all be all. It's
Welcome
not
to
better.
Shelly and the freaking Murders by
Communication
Shelley
is what
Carnes and the
is
freaking
important.
Murders.
And, you know, this has changed her life. It's changed her relationships. It's
Welcome
changed
to
our
freaking Murders,
relationship.
freaking Murders.
And I think anybody who, any parent who's not giving their kids that opportunity are really missing out.
Shelley Carnes
Catherine,
and the
actually,
freaking Murders by
Trying to find
Shelley
my
Carnes.
notes. Where did you write that this morning? You said,
Carnes and the freaking Murders by Shelley Carnes.
you spelled, yes, a lot of parents are doing their kids a disservice by not having a letterboard available and not taking
Hi,
the
this is
time
Shelley Carnes and
to
the
really
freaking
get to
Murders
know
by
their
Shelley
kids.
Carnes.
Wow. Thank you so much, Catherine and Aaron, for providing so much insight into our unreliable speakers. That was the end of part 1. Part 2 will be released in the coming days. In the meantime, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We look forward to seeing you all for part 2.